According to JD News, on October 1st, 1908, Henry Ford introduced his Model T automobile to the market. What would happen if the assembly line was not around?
On October 1st, 1982, Sony launches the first consumer compact disc player, model CDP-101. What would have happened if the compact disc was not allowed to gain its iron hold on the music industry? What sort of a world would we have if MP1 was allowed to take over before the industry had wanted it to?
This is Spiritus Holographica. I'm your host, Wolfman, and this is
Ricky Bearhart here.
And first off, let's talk about the automobile. And Mark, what's that word for it?
Well, you could say the automotive assembly line, the assembly line, but the general concept is mass production.
Let's just say they didn't come up with mass production.
Well, the reason I would say so is because you think about what is mass produced as far as mechanical engineering, and I would think that the enclosed cartridge, as far as bullets are concerned, that means you could I'm sure that predates the automobile, and you could produce hundreds to thousands to tens of thousands of those. So the concept of mass production, I mean, it was always in contest with me when I would talk to people about what came first. Ford's mass production line for his Model T, or the concept of, well, these bullets. I mean, they were able to generate hundreds of them, right?
They were able to generate hundreds of them. And this is what I'm thinking.
Mm.
Let's just say they don't come up with the Model T and mass production and everything else. Let's just say they don't. How much longer it would take people to accomplish things without that production coming into play?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's about precision. If each individual car has to be hand fabricated, there's no uniformity. Now, this has implications that travels all over the industrial singularity. Now, what do I mean by industrial singularity? Cave paintings led to cuneiform on clay tablets. Clay tablets led down the line to hand-scribed pages, copying words. So each book took years to reproduce. But then came Gutenberg and Gutenberg's printing press, and that changed everything and made for the Renaissance, made for the first banking empires, and the mess we have ourselves in today. Now, we go further than that into the singularity. If you can't have a mass production line, which is precision mechanical engineering turning out the same part over and over again, each car is a handmade work, which means you have an artisan class of car rights or automobile rights, the way they made ships in the old days when it was an art. Mass production in the printing press has the same implication as mass production for bullets or for automobiles.
So if Ford wasn't around, who would be the one who would take credit for the mass production of the automobile?
Well, I mean, I would say the next in line industrial giant. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure where to go with that, but the inevitability of the singularity means that someone would have put it together.
Someone would. It's kind of like, let's just say, the light bulb. There were how many people working on that light bulb at the same time? One person or two got credit.
Yeah, there were many, many different incandescent light bulbs, and Edison got credit for one of the successful ones. Tesla was forced to reinvent the light bulb for the World's Fair because Edison refused to share his patent on the matter, which is the typical hive-minded thing that Edison did. But the point is that had Ford not done it, someone else would have done it. Because the goal was to create a network. And that network, that word is a big deal to the singularity. Now,
and we got to take into account what was going on around the time of 1908.
Yeah.
The fact that automobiles were starting to come around. They weren't major, but people were starting to drive more than the horse and buggy. The horse and buggy, exactly.
Well, they were measuring engines and horsepower, I think, by that point too, right?
And they were measuring it, and the fact is, at the time, there were no real known roads, which means there was no road construction. And the fact that
it didn't happen until, I think, after World War II, right? The highway project?
Yeah, the highway project.
It had to do with, was it Roosevelt or was it Eisenhower?
It was Roosevelt that started it.
Yeah.
And then, they came up with the roads. But the fact of the matter is,
it's probably modeled after the Autobahn.
It was very dangerous to drive one of these automobiles on the road because you had horse and buggy, you had people who were walking in trolleys, if there was any trolley around, or something like that. Certainly,
you'd have a threat from mixed traffic, but the thing that I would say is, without paved roads, without a regulated tire, I mean, you didn't have a guarantee you were going to get anywhere. What if the road was too muddy? What if your tire busted? I mean, it's far from the way it is today, very far.
I was watching The Time Machine.
The old one or the remake?
It was the remake. It was where he went 600,000 years down the line, and
with the Morlocks after the moon blew up.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a wicked movie.
But there's this one part of the movie where the automobile went out of place, and something got lost, and it ran over his what?
Well, the love of his life, and he was in some sort of a nexus paradox where he couldn't avoid her doom.
So he had to go into the future.
Well, I don't exactly know why he did what he did, but all I know is it's an example of what is fated. All right, and that's a whole other hornet's nest for another day. I mean, what we can say, like I said, is the singularity is an inevitable, and it's fated. It's fated. Now, I don't know about any individual death, but when you create an industry around projectiles, whether they be automotive or ballistic, there's going to be a lot of energy flying around, and that energy can be channeled in a variety of ways.
But what happens? Let's just say this.
Yeah.
And I know you're saying the singularity.
Yes.
What happens if the automobile doesn't get created?
Well,
what kind of world will we live in?
Well,
how would our transportation be?
Well, I mean, like I said, the concept of the internal combustion engine, in my opinion, is an inevitability of the singularity, which is data. People are going to say, well, it's human ingenuity. And yes, that's part of it, and I'm not trying to de-emphasize human ingenuity. But what the other thing it is it's singularity. Now, if you read Ray Kurzweil, the futurist, he's the one that chiefly promotes this. And he says that in his math that there is a trend towards exponential return. The exponential return is, if I have this many here, I might have this many more later because we have a continuation. You had all the inventing that started in the Renaissance. You had things compounding, and then eventually you had steam engines. Now from steam, we went over to internal combustion. Internal combustion could drive a drivetrain and an axle. They already knew what a horse and buggy was. So then you have the mutant crossover.
But Ricky.
Yes.
Let me ask you this question.
Mm-hmm.
And you're explaining a little bit right now.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly would one of these machines look like?
Well, it's the automobile.
I mean, if the automobile wasn't around.
Well, you would have to have something that's more efficient than the wheel.
Yeah.
What's more efficient than the wheel? Can you immediately come up with an answer?
So we would have to date back all the way to the beginning, where they created the very first wheel.
Well, my point is a wheel is a ring of varying complexity, but it's circular. And no one creates a circle. A circle is part of geometry and exists in data, which is part of what the singularity is and why it's important to differentiate. Not a lot of people have a full grasp on the relationship between data and energy and what that means. The reason, there's a phrase called reinvention of the wheel, to reinvent the wheel.
To reinvent the wheel, very good one.
Now, how does one reinvent something that is almost perfect in its efficiency? The circle is elegant. It does what it does for a reason, because it's part of the hologram.
Yeah.
The mathematical precision of the universe, the golden ratio, the spiral, vortex mathematics, all these complicated things that are evidence of, in my humble opinion, a designer, an author, because otherwise it's a giant coincidence, and coincidences are cool when they happen in little bits, but after a while you have to wonder. Kurzweil says that you're going to have a greater and more progressive end, and it's interesting because he comes at it, from an evolutionary standpoint. Automobiles belong to the singularity, but the singularity is, by Kurzweil's reckoning, an extension of evolution. He's saying that whatever was going on in our DNA made this inevitable, the automobile. In other words, all the way back before we invented the wheel was already going to be invented by the exponential return of the singularity. It was just waiting to get to that point, assuming the energy would survive extinction. I don't know that he directly says these things. This is what I extrapolate from his math. I read about half of one of his books called The Singularity is Near, which I would recommend to anyone, because it explains futurism. Now, I've heard a lot of poo-poo and oh, that's rubbish and whatnot from people who act like that's not going to happen. But all you got to do is go to your YouTube page and type in DARPA. Okay. And take a look there and see what they're doing.
Okay, very good, Rick.
Now, we'll get back to the point at hand by segueing us into my point. And we'll do a compare and contrast, if that's all right with you.
That is perfectly fine. And before we do that,
yes,
it's very important we get plugs out for our brand.
Well, that's fine. I'm Ricky Bearhart, a guest from the Ulcanus Network. The Ulcanus Network is a benevolent parallel podcast network who we're all friends over there of the Joseph Vivaldi brand. And we have 6 working channels on the Ulcanus Network right now. We're working on getting some audio books put up. A spoken word CD, Machinations of the Cybernetic Phantom God, was just put up. That was a project from 2004. And it's a section of the book called The Muses, Signs, and Wonders, which should be appearing on Amazon.com very, very soon. And we have Temporality's Shadow, which is a paranormal investigation podcast where Twilight Cricket reads into a spirit radio designated Arcanon 1. And we record vocal anomalies, and you play them back on the slow playback. And you can hear the evidence of some strange vocal anomalies going on there. The Oculus network features